Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Commissioner O'Neill, Chief Boyce. Thank you for being here. Thank everyone for coming today. We're here today to announce the results of a successful long-term investigation that took place starting in 2015. We were targeting members of various gangs, including the Hood Stars, Folk Nation, and the A2 Trey Crips. We've obtained indictments on 35 individuals, and they are charged with a variety of criminal activity. What's unique here is that we use different technology, new technology, and different investigative techniques to help us solve previously unsolved crimes. I'm now happy to say we're able to hold people accountable who engaged in robberies, shootings, a home invasion, and other violent crimes, including multiple counts of gun possession. The investigation also revealed that these individuals were engaging in other crimes such as drug dealing and financial crimes, credit card fraud, and identity theft. Unfortunately, we're all too familiar with the cost of violent crime in our community. I think we may be less familiar with the cost of these financial crimes. In some ways, it's the new frontier for gang activity. We dismantled many financial schemes in this case, and we've charged 14 defendants with identity theft and forgery. We now understand that our fight against violent crime requires us to tackle financial fraud as well. As I said, the investigation started in 2015, and it was focused on known gang members that were operating in or around Brownsville. We monitored this social media accounts, including communications. They thought private communications on Facebook. We were listening on their cell phones, and we learned about a variety of crimes they were committing. Some of the crimes we discovered were relatively simple, including online purchases using stolen credit card information. One of the defendants, a man named Tyrone Sexton, he's charged in multiple indictments, was apparently a big fan of the store American Girl, and he allegedly bought dolls, expensive dolls, at that, and was using stolen credit card information from a woman who lived in New Jersey. But some of these schemes were more complicated and very lucrative. We discovered that some of these individuals used credit card information, and they had hundreds of credit cards and accompanying account details. And using the equipment like you see down here, the embossing machines, they created fraudulent credit cards and gift cards. The names of the cards didn't even match the magnetic strip. It didn't matter because they were just using it fraudulently. We believe that this credit data was obtained on the dark web, where hackers post this financial information for sale. In order for these people to commit this fraud, they needed to figure out which credit card information was still active. And while there's different methods to go about doing that, they had picked an interesting one. And we learned that it was easy for them to go to parking meters, the muni meters, and start charging the credit card $1. That didn't raise any red flags for the credit card companies. They didn't have to interact with anyone. They didn't have to show ID, and they didn't have to speak to anyone if the card was declined. And so with no human interaction, it became a very easy way for them to ascertain if this card was good for future purchases. And that's what they did. You'll see in one case, there's a man named Shaquille Reed who's charged for possessing, he's also charged with gun possession. He's an interesting example because he used his forged credit cards to pay for his everyday expenses. Every once in a while, he would go to the muni meter and make sure the card still worked. Then he used it further that day. The board gives us a quick snapshot of a 3-day period where he was using this one particular credit card just to pay for his daily expenses. It worked so well for him that we actually intercepted a call of him telling a friend that the card shot like Steph Curry. I guess it meant it never missed, but I guarantee he's not boasting today. We allege that these financial crimes became a full-time criminal job for some of these defendants. One search warrant alone recovered over 700 fraudulent credit cards and gift cards in just one apartment. Through these various financial schemes, some defendants we indicted brought merchandise on Home Shopping Network, others rented high-end cars, some purchased concert tickets. They were supporting their lifestyle. But it's very important to remember that these financial crimes don't just pay for new fancy clothing or cars. In many of the conversations we intercepted, the conversation discussed buying guns and getting money to buy more guns. The reasonable conclusion is that these schemes finance violent criminal activity and gun activity in and around Brownsville. And some of these defendants weren't satisfied with just making the profit off credit fraud. They also took to traditional crimes. I'm not going to go into the details of all the crimes that we were able to solve. There were too many of them to list now, but I just want to give you an example of some of the flavor of activity and why this is such an important case for us. We charged 5 defendants with a home invasion in which they violently robbed a man and his girlfriend in their home, pistol whipping the male. In another case, we found a man who owned a gun, which an 8-year-old relative brought to his elementary school. In another case, we found who was involved in a daytime shootout in Brownsville. And in another indictment, we charged 4 men for a drug distribution ring. All of this happened within this time frame where we were investigating these gang members. The takeaway here is that all this crime is interconnected. We must target all drivers of violence and the fraudsters who help finance their violence. There is an undeniable relationship between these financial crimes and the violence we're still seeing in certain parts of Brooklyn. We will never stop fighting for the safety of the people of Brooklyn, and we're going to combat financial crimes as well as violent crimes. I want to thank the police department and all the detectives. Many of them are standing behind me. There's more in the back that worked on this case. I want to also thank the people from my office and the Violent Criminal Enterprise Unit who worked very diligently on this case. No investigator or no detective can do this work by themselves, so I'd like to thank them for their expertise and for the hard work they put into protecting the people of Brooklyn. And now I'd like to introduce the police commissioner. Thank you.
To date, we've executed 89 takedowns, long-term investigations of varying size and scopes, and the results have been tremendous. 907 arrests as a direct result of these takedowns. This is very real crime fighting at work, make no mistake about it. Those numbers represent lives that have been saved, shootings that were averted, and many illegal guns taken off the street in our great city. In this case, specifically, the results are equally impressive. Over the last week, the NYPD made 33 arrests and executed 3 search warrants, resulting in the seizure of firearms and thousands of fraudulent credit cards. The schemes are as violent as they were eclectic, using stolen credit cards to purchase everything from American Girl dolls to Summer Jam concert tickets. For those who are from Brownsville, this is the end of Hoodstar violence. Through identity theft, bogus car rentals, and drug dealing, their actions permeated the streets and made residents and workers in our city unsafe. No more. The NYPD is focused on relentlessly combating violence. In previous targeted takedowns in the Rockaways, the Bronx, and in East Harlem, we saw shootings, homicides, and other violence significantly decline following arrests in those neighborhoods. Our job is to keep all New Yorkers safe. That's what we get paid to do, and I can tell you that's what the men and women of this great police department do every day. This is one of the main reasons that New York City will once again have a great crime reduction by the end of the year. We're on pace to have one of the safest years ever in our history, and we've been chronicling that by our month-end crime reduction press briefings every month. For their work in this case and for all our efforts to keep New Yorkers safe, I'd like to thank Detectives James Miles and Andy Ramaya Sergeant Andy Dutton, and Lieutenant Rich Zacharies. And thanks as always to Assistant Chief James Essig, who runs our Gun Violence Suppression Division, and his XO, Richie Green, who is standing here on the sideline. I don't know why he's not up here with us. And to Bob Boyce, of course, our Chief of Detectives. Most importantly, thank you very much to Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez and his team for their hard work in bringing forth the meaningful charges outlined here today.